I think that there are a lot of Catholics that are saved in spite of the Catholic Church.
I agree with that.
And I think it's a large number.
Yeah.
I don't think it's most or anything like that, but I think it's a large number.
But I don't have that luxury of knowing their heart, and I can get in there, and I'm not going to advocate that you stay there. I'm going to assume that if you're Catholic, you do not understand the gospel, and I'm going to proclaim the gospel to you.
Sure.
Hi, my name's Jerry Dorris, and this is Tanner Cartwright. We are here with Snake on the table.
Brother. What's up?
What is the snake? Wait, you've got a new baby. We didn't talk about that. How's he doing?
He's good. He's eating, sleeping, and pooping.
Yeah?
He's a little bitty thing.
Is he has he gained weight?
Yeah. He's gaining some weight. He was he looks thinner than he actually is. He was 21 and a half inches long, which is long for babies. Some of ours have been 19. Yeah. So, but yeah, he was 7'12", and he lost down to 7'2" or something, and he's gaining it back. So
awesome.
He's getting there. All he wants to do now is eat. So
I'm eager to hold him, but I've had a cold for the last couple of weeks. So I wanted to.
Matthew Squire Cartwright has entered
Dude,
the
Squire
world.
is such an awesome name.
Yeah,
That is like a boss name.
I love it that it's in Shelbyville. Squire Boone found.
You're going to call him Squire.
We're going to call him Squire. He'll be my only child that goes by their middle name.
Okay.
So
love it.
But yeah, Matthew, because the 10 generations back from him, Matthew Cartwright settled in New Hampshire. So I like that because it was family name, and just thinking about the heritage that he has in the Cartwrights, and then just the spiritual heritage of men like Squire Boone and pioneers, not only of the wilderness of Kentucky, but of the faith.
Yeah.
First sermon ever preached in Kentucky was Squire Boone.
Yeah.
And a whole lot of things cool like that. I could riff on Squire Boone for an hour, but one of my heroes. But anyway, so
we'll just have to do that. Why did you name your
son Squire Boone?
We'll do that for
Squire Cartwright.
All right, this is kind of like Russian roulette. I don't have a clue what you're going to ask right now. So what is the snake on the table today, brother?
All right, let's do Are Catholics Saved?
Okay, let's do it.
Are Catholics saved? And that's a little bit different question in my mind from saying, are Catholics Christian?
Yeah.
And I don't know what you think, I don't know what your thoughts are about that. But in my mind, there's a difference in saying, is someone Christian as far as, so we've made the argument before that a state could be Christian.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean that everyone in it is regenerate.
Right.
Obviously, we're Baptist. So we would argue that only those who have made a credible profession of faith that could be baptized. And so when we are Catholic saved, is you get into there's a multi-level way to think about that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I immediately think about brothers in Christ that I know that heard the gospel and were regenerate, but they were regenerated while they were still part of another entity of some sort. So we've got a good brother who was saved while he was in a cult, actually heard the gospel, and then as he sat there, became uncomfortable, and he left there. So yes, the answer is, can Catholics be saved? Absolutely.
Yes.
I would say that's true because I mean, I've met many, especially down at the abortion clinic.
100%.
We have met many Catholics that do not really understand Catholic theology.
Yeah.
They have just grown up in that tradition and have never really been confronted by somebody to say, hey, this doesn't comport with what the scriptures say, and this is what the scriptures say about these kind of things. And so they've believed, they have faith in Christ. Yet they're still part of an entity that we would say is apostate. I would.
Yes.
Their theology. Yeah. If they're going to anathematize me for my beliefs, I have every right to anathematize them.
Sure. Yeah, I would argue, my argument has been consistently for years that Catholics are Christian in a broad sense. So in the same way that I would say that a charismatic is Christian, Whereas I'm sure they might have some crazy beliefs that I would, at the end of the day, come to the conclusion, you don't understand the gospel.
Mm-hmm.
You're not saved. But
Mm-hmm.
I still put them under the umbrella of Christian. I tend to put anything that is correctly Trinitarian under the umbrella of Christian.
Okay.
That's been my position.
So Mormons and Jehovah's Witnesses, that's non-Christian, but
Yeah.
Catholics, because
Or even Oneness Pentecostal. Yeah.
right. And so because Catholics are Trinitarian, they're Christian.
And I would argue that has been the consistent Reformed view. If you go back, most of the Reformed Church throughout history, at least if you go, several hundred years back, today we view it differently. But if you go several hundred years back, they accepted Catholic baptism. So they didn't make them be rebaptized, because they were baptized in a correct Trinitarian baptism in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit.
These weren't Baptists that were accepting these. These are Presbyterians that can accept a sprinkled baptism.
But if an adult was baptized in the Catholic Church, I don't know how our Baptists
still sprinkled.
Well, yeah,
It's not immersion.
I don't disagree.
Bro,
I don't
we're
disagree.
Baptists. Stop it.
I agree. My point is that the Anglican Church, the Presbyterian Church,
They
many
would have
of them,
accepted that as a Trinitarian baptism.
and if Baptists didn't, most of them, it would have been in the same way that they wouldn't have from an Anglican or a Presbyterian. They wouldn't accept their baptism as legitimate because they were baptized as babies. They hadn't made a profession of faith.
I just want to pursue a sub point here, and there's a young couple that the moment we talk about this, they're going to say, "You talked about us again on Snake on the Table," but would you accept the baptism by a woman minister? Full body immersion, Trinitarian baptism, woman pastor, coming to Ref Church, wants to be a member of our church.
So I think that I would, in the same way that if someone from a solid denomination was baptized by someone that was then shown to be a serial adulterer and was removed and actively in sin.
Should we accept the baptisms that Steve Lawson has performed?
Yeah, I would argue yes.
Yeah, I would too.
Yeah. So this gets into the
Wow, I can just see all these snakes.
That gets into a big discussion. But yeah, no, I think that I would have to look at that at a case by case basis. Obviously, if it's some woman, what's the feminine of demon?
Feminine of demon? I don't know. Demonette.
Demonette.
Yeah.
Anyway, but
a lesbiterian.
A lesbiterian, thank you. A lesbiterian, from like the crazy woman that just rebuked Trump or whatever.
Oh yeah, that was
so good. I'm gonna make a video about that. Some stuff jumped out at me about that. It was pretty funny. But someone like that is coming from a gay Episcopalian type, denomination.
That's
whatever.
different.
That is different. I would not accept that because I would not accept that as Christian.
Yeah.
Or in the sense that I would not accept that as being orthodox.
Yeah, that's different.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
And I would accept that baptism, even though I've probably blown people up right now.
Yeah.
But I would accept that baptism from a Baptist church confessional. I think they are malformed. They misunderstand it. They have a woman pastor. I wouldn't submit to that church. I've often talked about this, not to commandeer this topic, because we are talking about Catholics.
Yeah, where do we come from?
But I've often thought of women pastors as being a second-tier issue. It meaning I can't be in fellowship. I won't go to church. We won't, we're going to be separated because of that. But often, as you pointed out, a woman pastor is more than just that.
It's never the one thing. You're never going to find a solid denomination that are correct on everything, but this one thing.
Right. There's a cascade of other issues.
Yeah.
All right, I did mean to pop open, I guess.
Yeah.
So a Catholic can be saved. They can still, I think, even remain in the Catholic Church. I think there's going to come a point, though, where God will extract them out of that.
The difficulty is, I think, the way different Catholics view themselves. And so I'll give you an example that, when we were going down to the abortion mill, when I first started going down there, I wouldn't call him brother. I wouldn't do that kind of thing.
Or pray with them and let them pray for you.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that. I'd be like, well, I'll pray for you. But, yeah, exactly. So I was a little more antagonistic at the beginning. But as I got to know several of them, one of them wanted to take me to breakfast one morning after the abortion mill. We went and sat down, and we talked for an hour just about the gospel and about, how we view justification by faith and all these things. And the guy was rock solid. Yeah. I literally took him through the 5 solas one by one. Yeah. And at the end of it, I remember sitting there at the table just dumbfounded. Yeah. And I was just blown away because he understands the gospel. Not only does he understand it, he believes it. Yeah. And I remember banging the table going, Ed, you're not Catholic. Yeah. And he was kind of doing the same thing. He was like, you don't understand what the Catholic Church teaches or what it holds to. And I'm like, they wrote it down.
But right here it's in a book, and I can
Council
tell you.
of Trent, Canon 9. I can show you. Yes, it's still in the Catholic Catechism. Yeah. So I think that there are a lot of Catholics that are saved in spite of the Catholic Church.
I agree with that.
And I think it's a large number. Yeah. I don't think it's most or anything like that, but I think it's a large number.
But I don't have that luxury of knowing their heart. And I can get in there, and I'm not going to advocate that you stay there. I'm going to assume that if you're Catholic, you do not understand the gospel, and I'm going to proclaim the gospel to you. Sure. Because I don't know how many Catholics we've spoken to, and you ask them things about how is one saved, and they can list all of these things. And I'm like, did you never mention Jesus? Yeah. You never mentioned Christ in your understanding of the gospel. Yeah. Or stuff like that.
I'm just going to be more gentle than I used to be. I would view it the same way if someone comes to me from a very large non-denominational church. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to just assume that they understand the gospel.
Well, we have a common theological framework. I can come to you and speak to you about.
Maybe.
Yeah, but typically, they've been catechized. They have an understanding of the scriptures.
You're talking about Catholics.
Yeah, I'm talking about a Catholic here.
It's a lot easier in some ways than with a non-denominational
We have shared ground here, and then we're going to. I want to press into Mary as being a mediator, or what Christ's work has done, and the sufficiency of Christ's work, and how purgatory is unnecessary, and why actually belief in purgatory is a damnable heresy, because you're thinking that you have to work off. You don't understand what Christ has done.
Yeah, as if he didn't pay at all.
Yeah, you don't have faith in what he's done, in his person and his work. Yes, you only have faith in his person, and you believe in, you venerate and care about him, but you want to go to Mary and add her.
And if you do that and you push on those things, what's going to happen is, I remember one guy I talked to, Mike, down there, and what happened was he pushed back that, yes, we're not saved by faith alone.
Yep. And you get those guys.
Quoting James.
Yeah, and then you'll get those guys who go,
And we're a heretic for believing that. Right. And so then we know where we stand. Yep. But with guys like Ed, I push him on Mary, and he's like, yeah, some Catholics,
I'm not there.
They raise her too high. I wish they'd quit bringing her picture down here. He says those things, and I'm like,
yeah, something different about this guy. Yeah. I have met those types of Catholics, and I want them out of that. I don't know what you'd call them. There's a gentle Catholic or
I remember years ago we were at Thunder over Louisville, and a similar thing happened to where there were these two people that came and were talking to us. They were both from Southeast, not at the same time. Large church in Louisville. Yeah. And the one young lady, we're probing her and asking her, what things about the gospel and what she believes, and it comes out that she thinks Muslims and all these people, that we're all going to the same place and we're all just getting there a different way. Well, she's part of Southeast.
Southeast Christian.
Talked to another guy, Southeast, one of the most rock solid guys, believe Reformed theology. I mean, next thing we know, he's standing there passing out tracts with us, also sharing the gospel. Yeah. Just a great guy. Yeah. I can't remember his name. My wife talked to him extensively. That's been 6-7 years ago. But I just remember in my mind just thinking, it's just unbelievable. When you have a large church, you're just going to end up with a lot of different things within that. Yeah. So I would argue that, I don't, when a Catholic comes up, and he's calling himself a Christian, I am not going to talk to him the same way that I would an atheist or a Muslim or whatnot. There's a difference, but I'm still going to push on the gospel. I'm still going to call him to turn away from the bad things in the Catholic Church, to denounce those things, to embrace Christ, all of those things. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does. I mean, and when you say press in the gospel, you're talking about, specifically, we're talking about how Christ's death takes on all my sin and all the punishment of my sin. I don't have to. I'm not punished for my sin.
Yes.
Christ is punished.
Do I have to work in order to be saved?
So that's
those things.
That's a central discussion that needs to be had. And then the second is the imputed righteousness of Christ. That I receive that by faith, not by every week taking a little sip of this and having Christ in me physically and that kind of stuff. I'm going to talk to them about how I receive righteousness.
Yep.
And I think how you understand that is going to determine whether or not you really understand the gospel.
100%.
So can the elect, are the elect in all of these different places? And, yes, and they hear the gospel. At some point, Christ is revealed to them with clarity. Their heart is regenerated. They come to faith. I want to be a part of that. I consider Catholics lost until I talk to them. And if they're in there and I discern that there is faith, then my encouragement is to come out of that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I'm probably going to be a little more gracious, but yeah.
Yeah.
If someone tells me they're Christian, I'm willing to take it at somewhat face value and then probe it, find out.
You're not, though.
I kind of am.
No, you're not, though. You're gonna preach pretty hard against.
Yeah, but in the same way that we have guys come up to us all the time that believe all kinds of errant stuff that would claim to be Baptist. Like, I'm not going to assume anybody is. I'm not assuming people know what they believe.
Brother, I think that's an important thing to point out. I don't really assume you're saved until I talk to you.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm assuming that you're lost in your sins and you don't understand the gospel, and therefore I'm going to present the gospel to you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to turn the conversation and talk about these kind of things.
So, for example, if somebody comes up to me at a gay pride parade and they're like, "Well, I'm a Christian," and I'm like, "Really?
Yeah, join us. Why don't you hold a sign with us?" No.
So my question is, well, then what do you do with the fact that the scriptures teach this?
Yeah.
And so it's not an instant. No, you're not. You're going to hell. No, let's talk. What you say you're a Christian? Well, this is what it is to be a Christian.
Yeah.
And you're not lining up with that.
Yeah.
So I do the same thing with a Catholic.
Yeah, I've had that, especially at pride events. You'll have somebody LGBT community come up and they say, "Well, I'm a Christian. Why are you doing this? Why would you out there? I'm a Christian too." My go-to place is Jesus said, if anybody wants to be my disciple, they must deny themselves, take up their cross, and follow me. And so I ask that question and say, so as an LGBT affirming and claiming to be a Christian, Jesus said this. In what way are you denying yourself?
Yeah. Yeah, your whole shtick is embracing your sin.
Yeah. I'm going to express who I am.
Yeah. Embrace who you are and Jesus will forgive you anyway is kind of their idea. Yeah. So that's not what Christ said. John 3 says that if you love him, you'll keep his commandments. And his commandments, in fact, won't even seem burdensome to you.
Yeah.
And that doesn't seem to be the reality of your life.
Seems like you're pushing against that and hating God's law and what he says in his word about sexuality and what you should desire, and that there are only two genders and those kind of things. Man, there's some rabbit trails there. I don't know. That was I can't even find it on our list here.
Are Catholics saved is the question. I'm going to say not necessarily in the same way that I couldn't say that about any denomination in the visible church. So you can't say across the board all Baptists are saved.
Are Reformed Baptists saved?
Yeah, it's kind of a trick question.
I want to talk to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know a lot of Reformed Baptists, and I would affirm them.
I will take your confession at face value, and let's talk about it.
Yes.
Yep.
And I hope that there's nobody at Ref Church that's out at Thunder over Louisville and somebody asks them the gospel, and they're like, "Oh, I think Muslims can go."
Dagger to my heart.
I'm sure the leadership of Southeast Christian would cringe.
Oh, they would
know
100%
that there's somebody
100%.
But Southeast, they do gather a lot of immature
100%,
and they're just coming, and there's a lot of entertainment and a lot of just they're there.
I'm not trying to condemn them wholesale as a church. I'm saying that you can find this. I remember James White saying years ago that you could go into any Baptist church and you could have the youth minister spouting heresy in about 5 minutes if you knew the right questions to ask.
Yeah, just ask something about
it. And it's kind of true. And so as Reformed, our tendency can kind of be, let's figure out how they're not saved.
Right.
And that should not be our heart.
No.
With a Catholic or with a non-denom or with any Lutheran or anybody that comes, I want you to be a Christian. That's my hope.
Yeah.
So let's talk about it. And this is what Christ said. What are you believing? Are you believing in him? Are you trusting in him?
So I would encourage this in terms of evangelism, and is to be a good question asker and to be a student. So we've had, like, if you've never witnessed to a Catholic and you're out I would ask them questions. What do you believe about this? I've never talked to a Catholic about X, Y, or Z.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah.
Is this what your priest would say, or is this what you just think? Oh yeah, this, and you can learn a lot. I remember the Noahides. First time I encountered the Noahides, and never heard of that in my life. And this guy comes up, I'm a Noahide, and I'm like, what the flip is a Noahide?
Same thing happened to me with the Branhamites at the Jefferson Pride.
Yeah.
They were there passing out tracts. I'm like, who are y'all? And they're like, we're Branhamites. And I'm like,
what is that? But then that's your opportunity to learn and grow and stuff like that. So with Catholics, I would do that. I would just ask a bunch of questions.
Yeah. I tend to be less antagonistic than I used to be. I'm really willing to talk to people. And I want to.
It's because you're such a warm, inviting, winsome guy.
The nuance king.
I'm just the nuance king. You silly Baptist. You're a nuance king.
So
right. Is this one dead?
Can Catholics be saved? I think the answer is yes.
Yes.
And so I would say that in a different way than if someone says, can a Mormon be saved? It might be possible that there's one out there, but Mormons worship a different God.
You can be saved after I share the gospel and you repent and believe.
Mormons and Muslims and Jehovah's Witness and Oneness Pentecostals, they literally have a different God. Jews, they have a different God.
Yeah.
And when you have a different God, you cannot be a part of the Christian religion. The Athanasian Creed is clear.
Yeah.
You cannot be considered part of the Church Catholic in any sense, meaningful or otherwise, if you do not believe in the Trinity and in the Christ being fully God and fully man.
What about Greek Orthodox?
I don't know about Greek Orthodox. Here's the tricky thing about Greek Orthodox, okay? Greek Orthodox, unlike Catholics, don't have what they believe nailed down for you.
I keep asking these questions and just perpetuating
no doubt.
this
is supposed to be a quick one. We said this was going to be a quick one. You told me to pick a quick one.
Let's separate that one out. I do want to talk about Greek Orthodox because it is popping up. So let's ask that one in a different question.
Yeah.
All right.
2 minutes from now.
Yeah. If you've got a question for us, you want us to answer, you go to snakeonthetable.com. Scroll to the bottom. There's an anonymous form. If you don't put your name, we won't know who it is. And we've got a couple, and I think we may actually deal with one next that is pretty. It's clearly something that they would want to be anonymous about, and we're willing to talk about some of these things. So,
and we have proven that we will talk about anything. So ask us anything.
You get yourself in trouble. All right, thanks.